Let's step into one of the most enjoyable and intellectually playful genres of modern fiction, the campus novel. This genre focuses on life inside colleges and universities, usually blending satire, academic politics, personal crises, and the quirks of scholarly culture. The very idea of the campus novel, centering its action on university grounds, has been mentioned in exam, so keep that at the front of your notes. Although the term feels modern, the genre actually took shape in the early 1950s, a detail also highlighted in exam. A major turning point was Mary McCarthy's The Groves of Academa, published in 1952, and this novel's significance is frequently tested. At the same time, critics like Elaine Showalter remind us that earlier works anticipate the genre, including C.P. Snow's The Masters, a detail that has also made its way into exam questions. Interestingly, the roots stretch further back than readers expect. Works such as Willa Cather's The Professor's House from 1925 and Regis Messac's Smith Conundrum, published between 1928 and 1931, are early illustrations of life shaped by academic pressures. You may also remember Dorothy L. Sayers' Gaudy Night from 1935, which blends intellectual intrigue with a mystery plot. That title appears often in exam, especially when discussing the subgenre known as the campus murder mystery. The campus novel usually mocks the pretensions, rivalries, and eccentricities of university life. Kingsley Amis's Lucky Jim, for example, uses sharp humor to reveal faculty insecurities, and this focus on the faculty point of view has been specifically mentioned in exam. But some contemporary novels shift the lens towards students. A useful example is Tom Wolfe's I Am Charlotte Simmons, which explores academic pressure from a student's perspective, a contrast that examiners sometimes ask you to identify. Serious, emotionally complex campus novels also exist. C.P. Snow's The Masters and J.M. Coetzee's Disgrace both explore institutional authority, ethical dilemmas, and the politics of teaching, and these titles have been tested in exam as well. Another modern example is Philip Roth's The Human Stain, which uses the university setting to expose themes of identity, scandal, and moral collapse. So, the campus novel can be comic, dark, satirical, or tragic, but it keeps returning to the same ecosystem, a campus community where ambition, failure, learning, and loneliness collide. Now let's look at David John Lodge, born in 1935, one of the most recognizable names in the campus novel tradition. Lodge taught literature at the University of Birmingham until 1987, and his academic career shaped all his later writing. He became famous for what readers now call the campus trilogy, a phrase connected to exam questions. The trilogy begins with Changing Places, published in 1975. Its full title is Changing Places, A Tale of Two Campuses, and both the title and subtitle act as a playful literary echo of Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities, an allusion that examiners love to test. The second novel of the trilogy, Small World, an academic romance, arrived in 1984, and the third, Nice Work, came out in 1988. All these titles appear frequently in exam because Lodge uses them to satirize academic ego, intellectual rivalry, and the sometimes absurd rituals of university life. Next comes Malcolm Bradbury, born in 1932 and passing away in 2000, a writer whose name has also appeared in exam. Bradbury was a novelist, critic, and one of the sharpest observers of academic culture in Britain. He studied at Leicester, Queen Mary University, and Manchester, earning his doctorate in 1964. His teaching career took him through Hull, Birmingham, and eventually the University of East Anglia, where he helped create the university's first creative writing program. Many students passed through that program, including Ian McEwan and Kazuo Ishiguro. Bradbury's first novel, Eating People is Wrong, from 1959, received wide praise. He followed it with Stepping Westward in 1965, a humorous exploration of the American campus experience. But his most widely discussed work is The History Man, published in 1975, a detail commonly tested in exam. This novel presents a darker tone, satirizing the ideological battles of the glass and steel universities, the new British institutions of the 1960s that followed the older red brick universities. Bradbury continued expanding his fictional universe with titles such as Rates of Exchange in 1983 and Why Come to Slaka in 1986, where he invented the fictional Eastern European country Slaka. His final novel, To the Hermitage, appeared in 2000, rounding out a long and inventive career. Let's turn to A.S. Byatt, one of the most intellectually adventurous British novelists of the late 20th century. She is not only a novelist, but also a literary critic and scholar, and her writing often reflects that rich academic background. Byatt's books bring together history, myth, art, and the lives of intellectuals, often placing academics or artists at the center of the story. Her early novels include The Shadow of a Sun, published in 1964, and The Game from 1967, and that pair of early titles has been tested in exam. Although these books established her talent, real recognition came later with The Virgin in the Garden, published in 1978. This novel is set during the coronation celebrations of Queen Elizabeth II and became the first part of a large tetralogy that follows English life from 1953 to 1980. The second novel of this sequence, Still Life, appeared in 1985. It uses the world of painting as a major theme, and this title has also been asked in exam. Two more books continued the cycle, Babel Tower in 1995 and A Whistling Woman in 2002, completing one of the most ambitious family and history sequences in modern British fiction. Beyond the tetralogy, Byatt produced an extraordinary range of work. Her novel Possession, which mixes mystery, romance, and literary scholarship, became an international success. Published in 1990, it received the Booker Prize that same year, and this fact is often tested in exam. Her later works include the children's book, a sweeping narrative blending history with fiction, and Ragnarok, a retelling of Norse myth written during the shadow of the Second World War. Shorter works such as Elemental, Stories of Fire and Ice, and the Matisse stories showcase her fascination with art, myth, and imagination. Over time, Byatt has developed a signature style that fuses postmodern technique with intellectual depth, often exploring how stories, myths, and artifacts shape human identity. Now let's move into Byatt's most famous work, Possession, a Romance, a novel that blends scholarship, mystery, and emotional discovery. As I mentioned earlier, the book won the Booker Prize in 1990, something that frequently appears in exam. This novel is often classified as historiographic metafiction, a postmodern form that questions how history is written and who controls the narrative. The story unfolds across two time periods, the Victorian era and the contemporary world. It follows two modern scholars who begin investigating the private lives of two fictional Victorian poets, Randolph Henry Ashe and Christabel Lamotte, both of whom hold central importance in the novel. Their names, along with Roland Michel and Maud Bailey, have been asked in exam, so pause for a moment and note them down. The plot begins when Roland Michel, a young scholar of Ashe, discovers a set of draft letters hidden inside one of Ashe's books. These letters hint at a secret relationship between Ashe and Lamotte. Roland takes this discovery to Maud Bailey, a leading authority on Lamotte. Together, they follow a trail of letters, diaries, and manuscripts that uncover a long-buried love affair. The novel shifts back and forth between the present and the past, often using letters and poems to recreate the Victorian world. This structure allows Byatt to explore textual authority, who owns a story, who controls access to it, and who gets to interpret it. As scholars uncover more clues, the narrative reveals that Ashe had been trapped in an unconsummated marriage, while Lamotte lived with her companion Blanche Glover, whose eventual suicide adds tragedy to the story. In one of the most significant discoveries, the readers learn that Lamotte secretly gave birth to Maya, Ashe's daughter. Maya was raised by Lamotte's sister in secrecy, and this hidden lineage becomes one of the emotional anchors of the novel. The modern story parallels the Victorian one. As Roland and Maud trace the lives of Ash and Lamont, they too begin to open up emotionally. Roland finds new confidence in his career, while Maud gradually lets down the emotional barriers she has carefully constructed. Their research leads them into the great storm of 1987, when Ash's grave is opened and a final set of documents is recovered. Among these relics, Maud discovers that she herself is descended from Ash and Lamont, linking the two time periods in a single line of inheritance. The novel ends with a quiet epilogue in which Ash briefly meets his daughter Maya, unaware of who she is. It's a tender moment that brings together the themes of loss, secrecy, and connection themes that echo throughout the novel. Above all, Possession explores the idea of ownership. Who owns a poem, a letter, a life, or even a memory?